This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the LG Thrill 4G for AT&T. Now, we don't have a firm release date for this yet, but we do have a price, which is a real shocker. It's only $99. And that's shocking because this is a very high-end Android phone with 3D capabilities. Take a look at the phone. It's a rather large phone. You can tell by how the size it is in my hand. The screen is 4.3 inches, but it's almost as big as the Samsung Infuse on AT&T, which is a 4.5-inch display. You can see here, both large footprint phones. The Infuse, in fact, gets a thinner profile since it doesn't have the stereoscopic 3D cameras on the back. And here we have it next to the HTC HD7S Windows Phone 7 device, which is 4.3 inches, and you can see it's actually taller and clearly going to be thicker. Okay, now that we've ascertained that this is indeed a large phone, let's talk about the rest of it. It's a 4.3-inch display again. It's 800 by 480 pixels. It's not QHD, but so far we're not seeing, a whole lot of 3D phones on the market, and we'll forgive the 800 by 480. I wouldn't mind a little higher pixel density. We'll discuss the display a little bit later in terms of 3D. You've got capacitive touch buttons here that are backlit. As the annoying trend goes, they light when you touch them, not before, so how do you see what you're touching? But other than that, they work just perfectly, and they're standard Android buttons. On the front for search, back, home, and the menu button. On the side here we have the micro USB port and micro HDMI ports under doors. Keeps a clean look, and they're pretty easy to open and close. And surprisingly, you get the HDMI cable in the box. Awesome, you don't have to go searching out for a micro HDMI to HDMI cable, so you can plug this into your 1080p display or TV. In fact, it's supposed to be compatible with 3D TVs if you want to output 3D content. Not sure quite how that works because this is glasses free 3D versus the usual glasses on TVs. Plastic back, kind of an interesting little pattern on it, swirl pattern. Nice soft touch finish. You touch it and you just want to keep holding it. Curvy on the sides, a bit on the thick side as we mentioned, and here's your two 5-megapixel stereoscopic cameras. If you're shooting in 3D, it uses both of these. And if you're shooting in 2D, it uses only one of them. Can shoot 720p 3D video and 1080p 2D video. Speakers in the back here. 3.5mm headphone jack, your power button right there. Volume controls are here, and then you've got a 3D button over here, and that's for the camera. Once you've launched the camera, you can switch between 3D mode and 2D mode using that button. And here's the pry point for the pull-off back. And to pull off the back, well, you just yank. Comes up pretty easily. SIM card slot, 8 gig micro SD card is included, and your 1500 milliamp battery. And AT&T claims this is good for up to 6 hours of talk time. We found battery life is pretty good if you're not streaming 3D content, or a lot of 3D content in general in terms of video. There's a custom unlock screen. You just press the power button, and you can see if you have voicemail, see what time it is, that kind of thing right there. And then you've got your regular desktop. This has a dual-core 1 GHz Texas Instruments CPU. It benchmarks very high, but over 2500 on Quadrant. That's about as good as it gets with dual-core CPUs in general right now. It has 512 megs of RAM, which is an okay amount of RAM. 8 gigs of internal storage, not all that's available to you. There's about 5 or 6 gigs that are available for you to use. And it has the usual Wi-Fi, 802.11bgn, Bluetooth, and a GPS. This runs Android OS 2.2 Froyo. LG says it's upgradable to Gingerbread. We don't have a timetable for that. Of course, the phone hasn't even released yet. And it has a custom software UI on it that's kind of typical for LG's recent Android phones, the ones that aren't running vanilla Android. It includes your AccuWeather widget up here that's preloaded, and their little application strip down here. If we take a look at applications, we can see they've done this before with phones. You've got things separated out into things you've downloaded, applications, and then 3D applications, and they have this little pinch zoom thing here so you can collapse any one of these that you want. And if you tap on the heading just right, you can open and close each one individually. And you can also customize that launcher further. The speed's reasonably good for a custom UI. It's fine. It helps that it has that dual-core CPU. Now let's talk about the 3D stuff for a bit. I really haven't been that fond of 3D on phones. I'm not even a big fan of 3D on TVs, but I'm really finding that I enjoy this, particularly for video. The 3D effect pops more than it does on the HTC Evo 3D, for example, and it really starts to become kind of fun and immersive, and it helps that it has this big 4.3-inch display. Another thing that I like, we've got 3D space down here, so quick access to some 3D stuff, and we've got all the 3D apps grouped separately. You feel like there's a little bit more going on. It's not like, okay, it's 3D, what do I do with it? So you've got the 3D camera, which is the same as a camera app, but you don't have to press the little 3D button to activate it. 3D gallery, 3D games and apps, which is really a shortcut to get some Gameloft 3D games. There's quite a few out there from Gameloft right now. 3D Guide is their launcher that shows you everything you can do. 3D Space we'll show you in a minute, although obviously we can't show it to you in 3D. And that's one of the few things that doesn't actually look really very good to the eye. It's a little bit headache-inducing. We've got some 3D game demos loaded. Asphalt 6, Gulliver's Travels, which is kind of a strange little game. Let's Golf 2. Nova, and we've got movies here, which is, it's powered by M-Spot. It isn't just 3D movies. It's, in fact, I think mostly 2D movies from what I've found so far. So if you take a look at 3D Space, either by going here or going here at your bottom launcher, it shows you a carousel, which is in 3D, if you can see that. It probably just looks blurry on the camera to you. And in fact, it's not real clear to the eye here, which is a shame because this is most people's first entrance into the 3D experience. So go beyond that. You've got access to YouTube 3D content, and there's actually quite a few 3D clips already available. And yeah, it works. It works very nicely, in fact. You can also upload 3D movies to YouTube using the camera. Got your 3D gallery, the 3D camera. So it's just a carousel of all the stuff that you saw in the way of 3D apps that are there. And there's a little 3D guide there that gives you some basic pointers on how to use the phone in 3D mode, how to hold it in terms of distance from your face, it's where it's best to shoot photos. They say 1.5 to 6.5 feet is the sweet spot for subjects that you're filming or shooting in 3D, that kind of stuff. And there are persistent warnings about how this might give you a headache, and you shouldn't stare at 3D for too long, and you don't have to see that warning every time. If you don't want to, you can dismiss it after the first time. Now we've got a 3D gallery here. You can also use the regular gallery that comes with every Android phone, and it has a little 3D icon so that you know that it's 3D. And there's the interface on this one. It's incredibly fast, actually. And you see anything that you've shot, and there's a whole lot of 3D samples on here, and that's where you really see that it's the quality of the content that matters. The professionally made 3D videos, they don't make you feel like you're going to barf, they don't give you a headache, and they really are truly very dimensional and immersive. Now, I've got some 3D content playing now, and I know that you can't see it, but trust me when I say that things really seem to jump out at the screen at you. If it's waves on screen, if you're watching a Polynesian movie, you can really see the fish coming right at you, and the surfers are coming out of the phone at you. And here when you have things flying around, again, they're really coming at you, and you get a sense of great depth, which is pretty cool. And with these non-glasses 3D phones, you got to find the sweet spot when you hold it. But if the content is fairly high quality, I find that you've got more leeway as to where you can hold it. Still photos, there's a very narrow sweet spot. You're going to look at it and say, ooh, that looks all fuzzy, and then you find the sweet spot and you go, ah, and then photos really pop in 3D, the ones that the phone is taking. They really do pop. It's pretty impressive stuff. LG did a great job with the camera on this, and, well, I mean, they're in the 3D TV business, so they do know how to do 3D. In terms of overall speed and performance, this has no problem playing 720p 2D and 3D content. Really can handle everything that we throw at it. The 3D games, and I mean 3D games in the traditional sense, but also they are playable in 3D, play perfectly smoothly. The 3D version of Nova, for example, those are less easy on the eyes. I don't think that game developers have quite gotten it with the resources yet, and those leave you feeling a little cross-eyed after a while, but they certainly do have depth and dimensionality. And the interesting thing is, we'll take a look at this, everywhere where there's 3D, pretty much you've got a slider, so you can control the amount of 3D effect. So we'll go into Nova, and here's that warning that I told you about, where it's going to tell you 3D content can make you dizzy, and you should take a break once in a while. Speakers on this are pretty loud, nice multimedia experience. And so here's our little control. And you can set the amount of 3D effect, really crank it up, or drop it down if you're finding you're not enjoying it. Gameplay is very quick and very smooth. And you can turn off the accelerometer-based controls in these 3D games, because if you move the phone around a lot, you get out of the 3D viewing sweet spot. So it's better not to use the accelerometer often. Which can make driving games like Asphalt 6 a little challenging. And now we're taking a look at Asphalt 6. Those twitchy controls I told you about. Definitely smooth and fast and great frame rates. So here's the large on-screen dialer that's standard for the phone, and you've got access to your dialer, call log, contacts, including AT&T address book, any groups that you've created. You can also get to your favorites. Call quality in this is really good. Very clear. Background noise is minimal on it. Voice is fairly full and rich on both ends. Definitely liking this as a voice phone. As you can see, we've got full bars of HSPA plus 14.4, which AT&T calls 4G here. And that's better than average in terms of decibels and reception too. This is actually a good reception phone, which is a pleasant surprise, because usually LG CDMA phones, that means Verizon and Sprint, have better reception and call quality versus their GSM counterparts, but this one is quite good. So I definitely can recommend this as a voice phone as well. Now we're in the web browser, we're on our home page, and you can see there's this little overlay strip here that LG has. I think it's a waste of space. Now I have seen it sometimes go away when a page loads, but sometimes it doesn't, so I'm not sure what the deal is there. Gives you quicker access to forward and back, multiple windows, adding bookmarks, and to your standard Android web browser settings. It's a little bit like a feature phone kind of feel to have that kind of thing there. But at any rate, let's take a look at flash playback. And this is over AT&T's network. We do not have Wi-Fi on. Speeds are good, supports pinch zooming just fine. And frame rates could be a little bit better. We'll switch to full screen mode, which is 480p. So that's full flash playing over AT&T's 4G network. And we have threaded messaging on the phone here, and LG's customized the UI a little bit. And you can see you've got color-coded bubbles here. And if you want to send something, just type in. There's your QWERTY keyboard. Portrait and landscape mode both supported. Also, in terms of user interface customization, you get some widgets here to start you off with. Obviously the weather up front here. Here's a widget just for the 3D stuff, including getting you right into YouTube 3D. Definitely fun. Music playing widget. Yahoo News. That's it on this side. And here we have a social networking widget for Twitter and Facebook. If you want to add more widgets, you just press and hold. And you get, actually it's interesting, you get a little graphical version. Twitter small, Twitter large. Power control stuff, news, photo album, photo frame. Put the power control one right up there. And we're good. So that's handy for turning your wireless radios on and off. So that's the LG Thrill 4G. It's going to be on AT&T for only $99 with a contract. And really, the 3D experience is kind of fun on this. It's a very nice high-end Android phone in general, as long as you don't mind a large phone. Performance is very good on it, and the cameras are excellent. Both for 3D, it does a very good job of adding dimensionality, and for 2D too, very sharp, nice images. Definitely a phone I would recommend, especially if you're into trying 3D or you're just into photography, thanks to a nice camera. Good voice quality, nice large display, pretty bright and sharp. Viewing angles not super duper wide, but you know, when you're looking at a glassless 3D display, you're not going to get the widest viewing angles given the current technology that's on the market. Software on here includes Google Maps and navigation. All the standard Google stuff's on board, the YouTube player and all that. And then you've got some AT&T stuff here, like AT&T Navigator and Family, and their barcode reader. A Kindle app is preloaded as well. Yellow Pages, the inescapable Yellow Pages mobile from AT&T. Not too junked up though with junkware. We've got a DLNA streaming app, and we have a full version of Polaris Office so you can view, create, and edit Office documents. I'm Lisa for Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website to read the full review of the LG Thrill.